Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I am back a second week in a row. I am the gaming marketing manager over at Lenovo Legion, and I am so thrilled to be here today with Kierstin G from Intel. Hey, Kierstin, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. It's great seeing you and, talking to the rest of the fans. Like this is super cool.
We're so
Ready to be
glad to
bombarded with questions. Bring them on.
Heck yeah. Well, let me let everyone know how they can submit their questions before we dive on into everything. So for this Q&A, we will be pulling questions from the TSMU Discord. So if you have a question for Kierstin, head to discord.gg/TSMU and ask your questions in the Ask Stream Questions Here channel. Once you've asked your question, join the waiting room voice chat to wait to be selected to join us on the show. So while people are getting their questions in, Kierstin, why don't you let us know a little bit about yourself and what you do in your role as a marketing manager at Intel?
Sure. So a little bit about me. I've been in the gaming industry for, almost 11 years now. It feels like so long. So at Intel, I lead our strategy for desktop gaming. So I am the HQ strategy lead working on releasing new CPU products for desktop. So I get to do all kinds of cool stuff, working with all of our teams globally, working with different influencers, working on different campaigns to kind of bring everything to life. So hopefully you'll get to see that soon. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Wow. Sounds amazing. And I have worked with Intel extensively in my role at Lenovo. So I cannot believe that our paths have not crossed just yet. But here we are
Small
now.
world.
I'm excited to make the connection and hear so much more about what you're doing over there at Intel. So with that, why don't we go ahead and dive right into the questions? I do already have a few queued up. So how did you get your start in esports and gaming?
Ooh, that is a really good question. So I'll start with gaming. Uh, I basically grew up playing games. As soon as I could fit a Game Boy in my hands, that's all I did. I was so obsessed with playing Pokemon that my parents actually got me a second Game Boy so I could trade with myself because none of my friends were like as obsessed with me. So they're just like, okay, you can go in the corner by yourself and just play Pokemon. But that kind of continued as I got older. I got different consoles. Eventually, I got into PC gaming. I played some Korean MMORPGs. I started getting into StarCraft after I graduated college, so I was a little bit late to the game. And that's where I got really invested into esports. That's when I started staying up till like 3 in the morning to tune into GSL, um, and just kind of just watch all these different esports events. I'm a big fan of Apex right now, so that's my jam right now. I love fighting games. I love watching that, even though I'm not super great at them. They are super entertaining to watch, but I think really when I first kind of immersed myself in esports and kind of got involved in StarCraft, started learning the communities, that's where the interest started. And that's where I started getting involved into collegiate esports as well.
Ooh, awesome. I can't wait to dig more into the collegiate esports. So it sounds like you got your start in console and kind of handheld gaming
Mhm.
devices. So would you say you're still mainly a console player or have you made the switch to PC gaming?
Ooh, when I was first able to afford a PC, that's why I went ham and I started building my own rigs. I
Nice.
still like console. I still have like a Switch. As you can see, I have Celeste from Animal Crossing in my background, but I feel like primarily now it's all PC gaming for me.
Nice, nice. That's what we like to hear over here at Lenovo Legion. So tell me, what is your background in professionally?
Sure. So my background has mostly been in gaming. So when I first graduated college, I came out with a degree in business management. I was
Mm.
lucky enough to kind of stumble my way into the industry. Like I've always been a huge fan of games. I played them all my life, but I really didn't expect to end up in the gaming industry until I landed a community manager role. So I started at a company called Perfect World. Um, if you're familiar with them, they make MMORPGs. So I was able to work on some MMOs. I actually worked on a Facebook game with them, so you can kind of tell how old I am just by that phrasing, Facebook social game. So that was kind of my jump into the industry. After that, I went to Konami, I went to GSN Games, I worked on some mobile games here and there, and then that kind of just propelled my career from there.
Wow, awesome. So were you working at all on the game development side, or was it more community management and getting your hands into that community and the players
Mhm.
that are involved in the game?
A little bit of both. So some of the work I was doing as a CM, there was some overlap with a lot of content management stuff. So physically going into a spreadsheet to edit some of the kind of item descriptions which would be added to the game. So that kind of level of stuff, but a lot of it was primarily from a community and a marketing perspective. So a lot of stuff on social, a lot of just interacting one-to-one with different members of the community, making sure their voices were heard. So if there was a suggestion or they had an issue with the game, I could just like run over to the other cubes and talk to our developers and say like, hey, red flag, like our players are facing this issue, what can we do?
Yeah, absolutely. So in your current role at Intel, are there any community management responsibilities that you are still carrying over to this day?
It's funny that you bring that up because before I got into this role around marketing strategy, I was actually working very closely with the team behind the Intel Gaming social channel. So some of the fun little meme posts you may have stumbled upon in the past year and a half, some of those I wrote up. But for the most part, we have a pretty robust team here at Intel who are really focused on making sure our social media and our community, at least from the gaming perspective, is very strong. And you know, it's all run by gamers too. So we're all nerds. We're all gamers. So when you're talking to someone on Intel Gaming, uh, they're also a huge gamer too.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can definitely verify that from my perspective. It's true. All of the Intel gaming folks are definitely gamers, and it's a breath of fresh air when I get to work with them directly. So your first job, you said, was at Perfect World. What was
Yes.
that experience like? And do you have any advice for others on landing that first job?
Ooh. So Perfect World, I think, was a great place for me to start. They were kind of new, they were fresh, so they are a Chinese company. So they were kind of getting their roots in the US. I was working at their US HQ. So it's a really small team. So they were trying to figure stuff out. They were in this kind of startup-y phase. So there was a lot for me to kind of just figure out on my own. So with certain companies that have that startup kind of phase or that startup mentality, you kind of have to figure stuff out on your own. Luckily now it's a lot easier because we have stuff like TSMU where you can kind of ask people and get some feedback and talk to other folks in the industry. Uh, back in my day, it wasn't so easy to find those kind of connections. Um, but when it comes down to kind of jumping in, I think it's a learning experience. Like you're gonna stumble a little bit. You have to figure stuff out on your own, and that was my kind of experience. Um, but overall, it was a great way to kind of learn and figure out what I wanted to do in the industry.
Mm,
Um, and when it comes to just trying to get your foot in the door, try to break into industry, it really comes down to a numbers game. So you're
mm,
gonna take a lot of rejections. I think over the course of my career, I've probably interviewed like 30 plus times, or I've gone on site to different game studios, different peripheral companies, and I just got the hard no. I mean, it happens. Like you're gonna get hit in the face with the no's. You're gonna hit in the face with the sorry, you're not the best fit right now. But I would say don't get discouraged, keep applying, keep kind of working on your resume, keep talking to other folks in the industry to kind of build up that wealth of knowledge. So when you go to your next interview, or when you're looking for a different role, you kind of have that like background and that knowledge base you can pull from.
yeah, absolutely. Great advice. So, next question here. How would you recommend reaching out to other people in the esports industry for networking? How do you make that first step towards building that connection?
So usually my first answer would be go to an event, but unfortunately, given the the time right now. It's not very feasible, but I'm really thrilled that we have things like TSMU where you can just kind of hop onto Discord and talk to folks who are in the same boat as you or are industry folks. That's a really great way to network. Twitter is also a great one, LinkedIn. Like, definitely don't be afraid to send kind of a cold call email or a cold call LinkedIn message to someone you respect in the industry. You might not get a response, but it doesn't hurt to kind of reach out and poke and kind of say like, hey, you work at such and such company as a marketing manager or community manager. Could you kind of answer a few questions? Most people will definitely respond. Most people are willing to help you kind of figure out what you want to do in the industry or answer some of your questions. So just definitely take the first step, put yourself out there, and absolutely don't be afraid to ask questions.
I would totally agree with that. And the worst thing that happens is that person doesn't respond or they say no. So
Yeah.
it's totally putting yourself out there. And I will say, from my perspective, it's always nice when someone reaching out knows something personal as
Mm-hmm.
well. Like they've paid attention to something that you have done in the industry, whether that's a TSMU Q&A or if it's they saw a tweet that you sent that they really
Mm-hmm.
liked. Adding some kind of a personal touch and the reason why you're contacting that person can really go a long way, at least in
Yeah.
my
Absolutely. Like, get involved in conversations. Like, we're seeing a lot of stuff trend on Twitter around gaming careers or just questions about gaming in general. Like, get involved in those conversations. People are pretty open to responding. Like, if you tweet at a game dev, they're usually more than happy to respond. Like, of course, don't bombard them with questions. Make sure you kind of keep it at a minimum so they're not overwhelmed because they're getting hundreds of these questions a day. But I mean, like I said, just get involved in the conversation if you can.
Yeah, exactly. Meaningful contributions can definitely
Hmm.
go. Yeah. Ugh, awesome advice all around so far. So I'm jumping back to the collegiate experience. So I know that you spent some time working at Collegiate Star League. So can you talk about your time and your experience there? And in addition, what learnings did you gain from working in the collegiate space? And is there any advice you could offer to students who want to get involved?
Sure. So I adored my time at CSL. So I joined 2011, I think. I was there for around 6 years, mainly working on community and social media. I was looped into some of the event production stuff, which is great. Like, I would help handle logistics for flying out some of the teams to, for example, DreamHack Austin, or we had an event in San Francisco, kind of managing some of the player relationship stuff as well. So I was getting my hands dirty with all these other different roles within the org. But overall, like, collegiate esports, like, it's fun. Like, it's a different level than what you would expect from some of the tier one esports. Like, it's, of course, you're not going to have super high production, but you have folks who are just like putting every ounce of energy they can into something they really care about. And I'm still a huge fan of collegiate esports. Like, I want to see that grow and thrive, and I'm thrilled to see different colleges offering scholarships. Like, that's crazy. When I was in school, like, the best we had was like a gaming club, right? But now you have students who are applying for full ride scholarships for an
Mhm.
esports team, and I think that's pretty freaking cool.
I totally agree. It is like such an amazing new world and new frontier, if you will. Like so
Yeah.
much opportunity is now available that was not available in the past, when we were going through school.
Hmm.
So really encouraging to see. And you said that you spent a lot of time at events, it sounds like. Did you have a favorite event experience specifically from working with CSL?
So our DreamHack event at the first DreamHack Austin was my shining star. That was the last year I was with CSL too. So it was kind of like my bon voyage. Like, this is a big event I get to go to. I flew out to Austin. The first night I flew in, I think I landed around 7 p.m. coming out of San Francisco. And we were at
Mhm.
the venue till I think a good 4 in the morning, just setting up, preparing, getting everything ready to go, getting like all the posters up, making sure all the wiring was ready to go, getting all the equipment loaded in. Like, it was crazy. And you're not going to see that for a lot of companies that were doing these level events, but like, I mean, I was a community person getting my hands dirty, like setting up different like setups and whatnot. And I definitely took a few naps on the floor, no shame. Sometimes when you're scrappy, you gotta make do with what you got. Yeah, exactly. Like it's collegiate. Sometimes it's rough. Like thankfully we had sponsors there to help us, of course. Like we had folks on board. We had like the staff at DreamHack help us, but you know, collegiate esports is growing. Sometimes you gotta get your hands dirty. You gotta put your elbows into it. But
Yeah,
it's fun.
exactly. It sounds like regardless of all the hard work and the extremely late night, that it still made an impact and has a lasting impression on
Oh
you
yeah.
as your favorite
I
CSL
will
event.
say some of the folks I met in collegiate, they're also in the industry. So
Mm.
collegiate is a pretty good starting point for people who want to get into esports or gaming. Like I said, like a lot of us kind of stick around because we're already kind of working with partners. So,
Yeah.
for example, we at Intel we're doing stuff in the collegiate space. That's kind of a bridge to networking, right? So you can start building those connections now while you're still in college, while you're creating your different collegiate esports activities or you're doing clubs. Like make the pitch, like put together a plan of attack for what you want to do, how you want to shape your gaming club or your collegiate space, or if you want to host watch parties, like start working and building those skills that you can transfer after you graduate.
Yeah, absolutely. Alec Guthrie was telling us all about his experience last week, where he pretty much established this whole tournament league and like
Mhm.
got this whole league off the ground on his own, essentially. So it's fully possible. And I've even interacted with some people who are in the TSMU community who are hopefully watching now, who have just done amazing things at their colleges already or even at their high schools. So it's totally possible to just kind of ride that wave,
Mhm.
and make those connections in the space just through your college experience.
For sure. And I mean, I've seen what's coming out of these colleges too. Like I'm so impressed. I'm getting like completely professional pitch decks from some of these collegiate orgs. I'm just like, wow, they learn so much now. Like this is putting me to shame. Like my stuff isn't as good as what they're pumping out for some of this stuff. So, just keep working on it. Like I said, you're building real life skills that you were going to be able to transfer if you continue a career into gaming or esports like that.
Yes, yes. I love that you said that and that you use those words specifically. That is like my top pointer always: transferable skills, being
Mhm.
able to show a company how your skills in a certain experience or even in a certain class or extracurricular activity or a job that you might have done, even if it was something as simple as working at like a concession stand.
Mhm.
I think being able to tell your employer the skills that you learned and how that's going to benefit their business can go such a long way in an interview process or even beyond that. So I love that you
Yeah,
said that.
absolutely. Like you definitely want to have those kind of stories in your back pocket as you're talking through your interview.
Yeah, and companies are always looking for well-rounded employees who've had a diverse
Mhm.
array of experiences. So don't discount some experiences that you might have had, that weren't in gaming or just outside in general, just
Yeah,
work experiences, because there you learn things every day. So just being aware of that
absolutely.
and being able to bring that to an employer and show them the benefit, top notch. That's key.
Mhm. And don't undersell yourself. I feel like I've seen so many
Yeah.
resumes coming from like stellar candidates and they just kind of talk like, "Oh, I just did this little thing." I'm like, "No, you ran that event. You organized everything. Don't say like, "Oh, I just did this little thing." No, no. Own it."
Exactly, exactly. Own it. Oh man. So I have more questions for you. Pivoting to social media, and I hope that you can't hear my cat screaming in the background. If you can, his name is Gus. Just say hi to him in the chat. Um, so social
We love
media.
you, Gus.
How, hey Gus, how was your experience working in social media? And are there any do's and don'ts that you can recommend for aspiring social media managers? Ooh,
Ooh, that's a heavy question. So, social media, I mean, I've lived on social media for a long time. Like, I spend too much time perhaps on social media. But how
same.
that's really helped me is just I know what's going on. I follow trends. I see what people are talking about. I see how the tone of social media has shifted over the years, how some paid media has gotten involved, and how companies are weaving paid and organic into their social media strategies. And that's layered on top of their community strategies as well. So there's a lot of intersection points between social and community. And I feel like to be a good social media manager, you kind of have to understand both worlds. Like they're completely distinct and separate worlds, but you need to have some understanding of both in order to do well, right? So
Totally.
my advice is, like I said, follow the trends. Don't go out of your way to be super edgy and try to roast people. Like we're definitely past the point, in my opinion, where we can kind of pull that stunt. Now people see through it. People are very aware, like, oh, this is just a marketing strategy, like we know. So
Yeah.
just being aware of the trends, especially of what's going on and kind of how the market is shifting, how the marketing strategies are shifting across the board, and just be genuine. Like don't kind of play up, don't pretend. People see through that very easily on social media. Like you're talking to smart people, so you don't want to dumb down anything, because to be honest, especially with gaming, your players are going to know your game better than you do, because the other
Yeah.
one's dumping in the hours. You're working on the game. I'm sure you play the game a ton, but these people are spending like 10 hours a day on the game, or 10 hours like testing your products. Like they know it. So don't feel like, oh, you're some level of superiority above them. Like they know their stuff, so you got to respect them.
Yes, and they are not afraid to call you out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the audience is so interesting, and it's so important in people or in roles like ours as marketing managers for, huge companies like Intel and Lenovo, that we do have our finger on the pulse of what's happening on social, what's happening with each game, like which games are rising in popularity, which games are falling in popularity. So it's something that I feel almost your scrolling benefits your job. Like when I
Yeah.
first took this job, like one of the first weeks, I had gotten a picture reel of like all of these TSM players, and then it's part of my job to be clicking through all these TSM players,
Yep.
through all their pictures. So it's one of the exciting things I think about being a marketing manager in this space, is that your scrolling like helps you in your job, and even when you're
Oh
just
yeah.
playing games after work, it helps you in your job. So definitely one of the benefits about working in an industry that you feel personally passionate about.
hmm
And I
Yeah.
do know that you Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, just being in the thick of things helps. Like, the benefit is like you are the face of the company to some degree, but you're also the audience. So you have to take it through that lens of, yes, I'm talking from a company perspective, but as a fan, as a consumer, as a player, like, is this how I want to be spoken to? So it's good to have that kind of, internal conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we do have a question from the Discord.
Ooh.
Plastic Pizza asks, what does your day-to-day work look like? Is it mostly meetings?
I feel like Emily, you would agree with me on this one. It's a lot of meetings. It's sometimes you have to go through these meetings to kind of just get everyone in the same room, uh,
Yes.
just to make sure everyone's on board. There's a lot of emails that go back and forth, a lot of meetings to follow up on those emails, but it's just part of the process. Sometimes it's the easiest way to make sure everyone's on the same page. It's to just call someone up, right? So nothing gets lost in translation, nothing gets lost over IM. But that's a lot of what I do. I do a lot of fun PowerPoint presentations. A lot of my time is just literally staring at my laptop and just talking for a very long time to other people in the team. But
Yes.
when I have free time, I do try to just immerse myself in what's going on in gaming. So I will carve out some time in my day to day to figure out, okay, what's going on in esports today? What should I be aware of? How can I kind of fold in whatever is happening? Or, Twitch trends, how can I fold that into my marketing strategy where it makes sense? So just trying to get vibing with the rest of the community.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I totally agree with you on the meetings. There's that whole concept of like, could this have been an email? It sounds like you agree with me in
Yeah.
that sometimes it's just easier to get everyone together, rally the troops all at the same time, get
Mhm.
everyone speaking the same language, whereas sometimes email threads can just get so out of control,
Oh, yeah.
and have so many people on them that you just need a meeting sometimes.
Yep. It's tough when you work globally too, because your email is not going to reach the person until they wake up, and that may be like 8 to 12 hours later. So you're just sitting
Yes,
there and you're just like, what do I do now? Like, so that's why jumping on a
exactly.
call, like sometimes at 6, 7 in the morning is just the easiest way to get it solved.
Totally agreed. Totally agreed there. Awesome. Well, thank you, Plastic Pizza, for the question. Next question. For someone working, or excuse me, for someone interested in working in marketing, what skills would you recommend they improve on to best prepare themselves for the role?
Ooh, that is a good one. So there's so many different roles within marketing. You kind of have to pinpoint where you want to go after. So there's different things like strategy level stuff. There's campaign level. You could go into paid media. This also jumps into social media. But overall, I think one of the biggest things is just buff up your writing ability. Like you're gonna write a lot. So whether that's doing emails, maybe you're doing copy for social media, or maybe you're doing, something that I do is messaging. So writing messaging for different products. So when they go to market, you have like a very set kind of guidelines for how you're gonna talk about the product. Um, but get used to that, get used to doing PowerPoint presentations, get used to public speaking, because you have to convince people, not only your own team, but sometimes you have different customers or different partners you have to work with. Get used to talking, and being able to convey your plan or your point across in a very concise manner, and just
Really
follow
great.
trends too. Just see
Yeah,
what's going on in marketing. Sometimes the best way to learn marketing is to just kind of sit on the internet all day, if that's the kind of marketing you're going after, and see what's going on, see what ads are playing on Twitch, see what kind of ads are being posted onto Twitter, see what people are talking about. Just get immersed as much as you can.
I would agree with all of that, especially the PowerPoint presentation. Note, my
My poor
PowerPoint
computer
skills are
is so mad with the amount of PowerPoints I open on a daily.
yes, and the Excel sheets, a lot of
Ooh,
Microsoft Office going on at all times.
it never stops.
It never stops. It's true. Oh man. Well, I want to remind everyone how they can ask you a question, Kierstin. So we are accepting questions for Kierstin. If you have a question for her, please do head to the Discord. It is discord.gg/TSMU. You want to ask her question in the Ask Stream Questions Here channel. And once you've asked that question, join the waiting room voice channel to wait to be selected to join us on the show. You can also just submit a text question. You don't have to join us on voice, but we would love for you to do so if you're willing. All
Bring it
right.
on.
Yeah, bring it
Love
on.
questions. Yeah.
Love the questions. All right, next one. How is your, nope, already read that one. Are there any particular campaigns or projects that you've worked on in your career that you're especially proud of?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm like mentally thinking back of all the years because I'm old. So, probably
Hear
one of
that.
the cooler things I've done, and this is a mild flex, was I got to work with TSM when I was at Plays TV. We sponsored them, so I got to do a lot of cool stuff with TSM. Um, I got to do different promotions, contests with them, which was always a blast. Uh, Shout out to the team at TSM. They are fun. They are a joy to work with. So I think that's probably one of my prouder ones. That kind of sits in my like influencer campaign bucket of cool things I've done. Um, but the things I'm pretty proud of what I'm working on now, but sorry, no one can see it yet. So stay tuned. Soon.
Oh man, that's okay. I might have seen it. I don't
Ooh,
know. I don't
you
know.
got that. You got
Over
that
at Lenovo.
inside.
Who knows? Got
It's
that
a
inside.
mystery. You'll find out soon.
Yes, everyone sure will. Keep them on their toes.
Exactly.
I love it. So, what are some of the more important lessons that you've learned in your career that you could share with us?
Ooh, there's a lot, and I will admit I will continue to kind of learn. Like you're never gonna stop learning. You're gonna kind of make mistakes, even if you've been working 1 year or like 20 years. You're going to kind of stumble, and you should really take every opportunity you can to learn and improve. But some of the lessons I've learned is definitely, speak up. Like if you're doing planning stuff and you have a perspective on something, let's say you're working on a marketing campaign for gaming and you're the only gamer in the room, speak up. Like you come with a very distinct perspective, a different point of view that your rest of your team has. So it's definitely worth kind of chiming in and kind of sometimes managing up. I know it's a little scary. Sometimes I get a little nervous too when I talk to folks who are miles above me on the management level. But your opinion is valid. Your insight is very important, especially if you're coming from a perspective no one else has. So like I said, don't be afraid to speak up, kind of take that risk. The worst that can happen is someone's like, oh, okay.
Exactly. Well, you started answering that question by saying you're always going to make mistakes, and I think that's so true. There's always that little bit of room for error, and we're all people. So I think it's important for you to share with people what you do when you do make a mistake. What's your strategy? Because it does happen. It sure as heck happens to me all the time. So how do you handle it when you do make a mistake?
Yeah, so it definitely happens. I think the first thing you need to do is, one, acknowledge the mistake. It doesn't matter who did it. You just got to own up to it, or someone has to own up to it, and you just have to find the resolution as, easily and as painless, as quick as possible. So it's going to take some teamwork for the most part. And, as you're working through this problem, this of course kind of helps build up your team. It helps you kind of establish better relationships with your colleagues. And you took the responsibility on yourself, right? Like whether or not the issue is necessarily on you or someone else in your team, the fact that you've kind of owned up and you're kind of taking the lead to find a solution to an error, that's a big deal. Like that's kind of a leadership quality that people are looking for when they're hiring or when they're looking to promote, right? So just, acknowledging that something went wrong, it happens, it's okay, we'll find the fix.
Yes, yes. Moral of the story is that mistakes can actually turn into opportunities for you to show how you handle mistakes when they're made, and how you fix things. So I definitely agree with you on your recommendation there. It is always best, especially in a corporate environment like Intel or Lenovo, to just take that responsibility and just own it. Let everybody know this is what happened. Here's how we're going to fix it moving forward. And totally, from time to time, you're going to need some teamwork, some collaboration, but it's always better to own it and own up to it rather than trying to place the blame elsewhere or just trying to avoid it.
Yeah, definitely don't kind of say, well, it's not my problem, and just kind of pass the problem around. It's just going to get worse. Like someone has to tackle it. If it's going to be you, awesome. You can kind of take the lead on that, and if you find the solve, that's a big win for you. So
Yes, absolutely. It makes you look better in the end.
oh, yep.
Totally. Well, back to the collegiate, we've got more questions coming in about your collegiate experience. So for our collegiate leaders out there who are looking for sponsors for their clubs, programs, and events, what advice would you give to those approaching brands for sponsorships?
Ooh, build a PowerPoint. Like this is going to
Yes.
be the number one piece of advice I can offer is to build a really nice PowerPoint. So what should be in this PowerPoint? One, you want to talk about your club, who you guys are. Two, what you guys do. Do you do events? Do you do watch parties? List out all the cool stuff you've done. And then talk about metrics, KPIs, key performance indicators. So this is going to be a big one. And lots of people look for these metrics. Things like social media followers, views, amount of people in your club. If you're running an event, what's your foot traffic? Those kind of big numbers to kind of put at a pretty high level, like what your stuff is and, what kind of viewership they can receive if they end up sponsoring you.
Yes, I would totally agree with that. Totally, totally. The PowerPoint can go such a long way. I did have someone approach me for sponsorship once with like a Word document of just like
Ooh,
paragraphs why we should sponsor them. And I just kept asking them, we need a deck, we need
yep.
a PDF of your PowerPoint that we can flip through and get everything really, really quickly. So I would definitely agree with you there. That was top-notch, stellar advice,
Yeah.
genuinely.
Put in the
It
pretty
seems simple.
pictures, like brag. Like keep in mind
Yes,
that whatever deck you're sending, it might not just go to the one person you're reaching out to. Like that deck will probably get passed around to other parts of the team. So if it's really easy and clear to read, the person, like let's say you're sending me a deck, I'm gonna have a much easier time talking to my team and telling, basically I'd be resharing the deck and explaining like who this college is, what they do. So the easier and the more concise you write the PowerPoint, the better chance you're going to have when you're talking to these sponsors.
absolutely. I totally agree. And it just seems so simple, but it is seriously like insider stellar advice. So yes, heck yeah.
I feel like the main moral of this whole Q&A is learn PowerPoint.
Wait. I think we need the meme of Michael Scott going PowerPoint.
Yeah.
I do hear that you are a bit of a meme queen, Kierstin.
Oh no.
We have had some people talking about your reign as meme queen in the chat. So I won't make you talk too much about it, but I will say I am a huge fan of the Intel and Lenovo punny tweets that were going around 2 weeks ago. For those who may not have seen the tweets, I think Kierstin was the one responsible for a tweet that said, "We Lenovo, what's going on?" with the no in Lenovo spelled Know. It was brilliant.
I feel like our social media strategist is like watching this and just shaking his head. But like I said, our team has a lot of fun. A lot of them thankfully are also huge memers. So the Intel Gaming channel is in great hands when it comes to top-notch meme quality. I think our team, they definitely jumped on the Dom Toretto family meme train. So I think if you scroll a few weeks back, you'll see one of the memes they created from that. But I personally spend too much time looking at memes, and I should probably stop.
Well, it helps the career in the end. So
It's true. I mean, I'm going to be honest. For a long time, I was a professional meme poster. So those looking to get into social media, put in your meme skills on your resume.
exactly,
It doesn't hurt. It's
does not
content.
hurt. It is. It is at the end of the day, and it's entertaining too. So
Hmm.
should help butter that person up. Well, I'm so excited because we have a voice question.
Ooh.
So I'm going to open it up. Silver Dragon, are you with us?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
Hello, hello.
Hey, it's Silver Dragon, a long time viewer, first time caller. My question is, Intel has always been a really big innovator. You guys have gotten tons of work with various technologies. Are there any technologies you can tell me about that you're excited to bring to Collegiate Esports? Obviously, don't tell us about stuff that you can't talk about, but I would love to hear more about things that students should be taking advantage of.
Ooh, that is a very good question. From a collegiate standpoint, so our team and I work very closely with our U.S. marketing team, who is handling a lot of cool collegiate activities in the U.S. Definitely, if you can, try to figure out how to reach out to them. I know they're working on a lot of stuff, so you'll see that soon. Like I said, I don't want to talk about anything that's not out.
Yeah, totally.
So keep an eye out for some cool collegiate opportunities that are in the works. Unfortunately, I can't say more than that, so just hang tight.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
Yeah, thanks for your question.
Yes, thank you for joining us. All right. Oh my gosh, exciting, guys. If you do want to ask Kierstin a question via voice, make sure you head to the Discord. It's discord.gg/TSMU. We would love to have more of you guys on the show. But moving forward, a question about organization. This one is near and dear to my heart. What organizational programs, processes, or tools do you use to stay organized? And do you have any advice on how to use them?
Ooh, I'm gonna be real honest. I'm old school and I have a notebook, and I feel like that is the easiest way for me to kind of just slap something down. Um, I've tried different like project management tools. I've used Trello for some time, but like I never really stuck with it. I always went back to the notebook and just like a ton of sticky notes. And I felt like that was the easiest way for me to visualize things because I'm just like staring at the words I wrote down or like the scribbles I made. And how I take that, I just kind of translate what I've written down into like a PowerPoint or an email, and that kind of helps me keep organized. I also have like this just giant calendar I stare at as well. It's just, align with different dates for events and whatnot. But everyone has their own kind of methodology for how they organize. Um, some people use different programs. Like I said, I'm more of a fan of the old school, just write it down kind of stuff.
I'm totally with you there. I'm a big notebook person as well. Do you get into the colorful highlighter game too?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Pretty fun. Love to hear it. Love to hear it.
I got the little thin sticky notes I use as bookmarks too, so I flip through all that when I can.
Amazing. Gotta keep it old school. And there's something
Exactly.
about like writing something down physically rather than just typing something
Mhm.
down. That makes sense. To make it like stick better.
Oh yeah. When you're putting the effort into writing stuff for like hours, you're just like, oh, it reminds me of school, honestly. Like just
Yeah.
studying for tests, you're just writing stuff down. And you're just like, I'm just trying to get this into my brain. That's how I feel with note taking sometimes.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, amazing. Well, I love notebook games, so I'm right there with you. Next question. You've worked in the industry side or in the industry on the brand side, the organizer side, and directly with video game companies before. So how different was it doing community/marketing management for such different companies and with such different perspectives? Was it challenging for you to adapt?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I think as I've gone through different companies, I've worked on mostly B2C, so talking directly with our players. There are some instances where I was B2B working in partnerships, but there are cases where I worked in audiences I was completely unfamiliar with. For example, I worked on an MLB game. I'm not super duper familiar with baseball. I had to learn everything. So what I did when I first started working on that game was I just went to the MLB social media pages and I just stared at it and went through all the comments to try to learn the voice, try to understand what people were talking about, learning what was important to people. I talked to my friends who are huge baseball fans, like, hey friend, like, what do you care about when you watch a game? Like, what should I be looking out for? And, they were a wealth of knowledge as I was trying to learn this. Like, my background is not in sports. I'm a gamer through and through. The only sport I do care about is like Formula One. But, you know, really getting immersed in the audience and trying to figure out how they think. That's probably one of your number one goals as you're kind of flipping through different audiences. Another great case in point was when I was working on casino games, I worked on a bingo game. So really old school, like you're just playing bingo. The demographic really didn't line up with who I was. But I had to learn to speak like them. I had to learn what was important to them and what made them excited to come to our page every day. And that just comes through just getting immersed in the product, getting immersed in the community. You don't necessarily have to be a fan to kind of think like a fan. Like you do have to do the research. Like you have to play the game. You have to put in the time and figure out stuff. But I think like lots of folks will be more than capable of just kind of sinking in and getting used to the community. Like it's like learning a new game. Like if you're playing a competitive game, like you'll do the research. Sure, you'll like jump in. Like I typically will jump in, fall flat on my face, take the big fat L, but once I recover, get my ego back in shape, then I'll, watch a video explaining to me about, how do you CS better? Like, how do you get better aim? Or I'll read some strategy guides to get a better understanding of what I should be looking for. You should really apply that whole kind of same logic train to how you're approaching your job.
Yes, I would totally agree with you there. And wow, good on you for being so hands-on in terms of learning about your audience. And it's definitely something that you just have to do.
Yeah. You get used to
Yeah.
it. I mean, sometimes it comes over naturally for others. Like if you are a big fan of Valorant and you're working on a Valorant social media channel, like that's going to be super easy, but you should always kind of learn, like maybe you're a hardcore player. You also have to learn how to speak to folks who are more casual about the game as well. So there's
Right.
different levels of the audience you have to be aware of because you're talking to them at every level.
Absolutely. It can be overwhelming at times, but I think just immersing yourself into that audience, learning what makes them tick is
Hmm.
so important. So if you could go back and change one part of your career path, would you? And if so, what would it be?
I don't think I would. I feel like, yeah, I feel like I wouldn't change anything because actually, I think the one thing I would change is I would be more open to talking about salary and expectations around that.
Mm,
So
love
nowadays,
it.
we have a lot of cool resources where people are more open to talking about compensation. When I was really young, like I liked the jobs I work for, but I was super underpaid. Like I had no idea. I had no resources to leverage. I didn't know what the starting salary of a CM should be in the gaming industry. So I was
Mm,
just like, okay, I will take that number. It sounds good to me. Like I had no idea. So if I could go back, I would tell myself, ask for that promotion, ask for that raise, like get the competitive salary. But I think that's the only thing I would change. Just getting a better understanding of my worth, like as an employee, is like a huge thing.
yes. Oh my gosh, I love to hear you say that. And also, especially as a woman, you gotta defend yourself. You have to stand up for yourself.
Hmm.
And you have to know your worth at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So love that. That's the one thing that you would change. Amazing. Other than that, no regrets.
Yep. I've had a very fun career so far. Like I'm very
Good.
fortunate that I could end up in gaming and tech and all that good stuff, and probably one of the more competitive regions in the States. So it's been a fun ride. I hope to continue and stay in this industry as long as I can. And I hope I can continue to just tell other people how to navigate their way through it.
Yes. Well, maybe we'll have to have you come back on TSMU someday soon and talk more about it. So you mentioned that you keep up with trends and market shifts as a part of your job. So can you explain your process in keeping up with those trends and any advice to staying on top of those trends, especially for social media? Is it really just scrolling, or is there more to it than that?
There's definitely a good amount of scrolling. So knowing who the big players are in the industry is probably one of the first things you want to do. Knowing what are the hot conversations going on, knowing how folks are marketing nowadays, how that comes through paid media, and just kind of getting immersed in everything. That's probably the best way to approach it. I do kind of jump to Reddit sometimes to get some flavor of news, but I feel like the majority, especially for social media, it comes down to me just kind of spending the time to get fully immersed in the different audiences within Twitter around gaming, as well as Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff, YouTube, like any kind of piece of media that you can consume will kind of help you better understand what's going on at a trend level.
Great advice. Really great advice. Thank you for that.
So you can totally scroll on Twitter all day if your job is a social media manager. There's
It's
no
true.
shame. It is literally your
Balance.
job.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, it's true. So what has your favorite memory been that you've made working in esports and gaming, and why is it so special to you?
Ooh. Going to Evo 2019 was one of the big ones. Like this was my first Evo. At the time I was working for PlayStation. This was our time coming up as a presenting sponsor there. And that was fun. That was so fun for me. Um, like I said before, like I love watching fighting games. Like it's such a different level compared to other esports where you have, mostly team sports like League, Valorant, Apex, all team based. fighting games, it's so different, and the level compared to, let's say, going to Worlds, you're not going to be as close to the pros as going to a fighting game event where you're like huddled around the pro playing their pools matches, and you're all just screaming your heads off for like 3 days. It is such a blast, and that's probably one of my favorite esports memories.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I'm gonna have to get myself to a fighting game event sometime soon. Let me make
It
the
gets really
recommendation.
intense. Like, you're like, dang, like this is crazy. Like, people are just jumping around screaming, like, because everyone's standing up, like running. It's crazy. It's so fun.
Oh my gosh, it sounds like it. I am excited now. I have to start looking into that. We had a lot of fun with like just Street Fighter in
Mhm.
college. Street Fighter tournaments. Good stuff. So
It's
I
that
think this
times
is
10.
our
It's so fun.
yes, it sounds like it. I need to get one of those experiences. So I think this is one of our last questions. But how do you maintain a good work-life balance, especially in an industry like gaming and esports? Do you feel like you need to work long hours or have the grind culture mentality to succeed?
Ooh, so that was a very good question considering what's going on in this industry right now. I think when I was much younger, I struggled with understanding work-life balance. Like, I very much was in the mindset like, oh, because I'm passionate about gaming, I should really just stay those extra 3 hours. Like, I was working until 1 a.m. sometimes, where I was sitting in the office and there were maybe like 2 other people with me working on this big like presentation that has to go to like the CEO or something. Like, that is kind of unacceptable. Like, current me would be like, no, 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 go home. Like, you need to sleep. You need to have your own time. Like, you shouldn't be grinding yourself to a paste for that extra dollar, basically. So over the years, I've kind of learned to separate myself from work and like my personal life. So I've done this in a few ways. The first one being like, one, I don't have like a dream company. Like, there are really cool companies I've worked for, and there's cool companies that I think would be nice to work for, maybe in a different life or something like that. But I really did that to manage expectations. Like, we get really wrapped up, especially in the gaming industry, around I have to work for my dream studio. Like, I want to work on this game. This is my favorite game ever. But sometimes that can be really unrealistic, and it sometimes can be a punch in the gut when you get there. So
Mhm.
going in with a mindset like, hey, it's really cool you work on this super awesome game that you love, but remember, this is a job. And you have to like create that mental separation in order for you to manage your work life balance. Otherwise, like I said, you'll end up like me when I first started out, just grinding yourself to a paste, like working at 2 a.m. in the morning because you're like, oh, I have to make a point. I have to show up and be here because I'm a passionate gamer. Like, no, you can be passionate about your job. You can come out swinging. You have the knowledge base, but you don't have to work insane hours. And I really dislike the whole concept of grind culture, because then you kind of boil yourself down to only your job. Like, you are more than your job, you're more than your career. You have other interests, you have a life, you have different passions. Like, don't sink all your hours into what you're working on for money.
Yes, preach, preach. That was all so, so valid and something honestly I needed to hear a little bit today. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's tough too with a lot of us working from home. Like, as you can see, I got my little chippy. I'm at home right now, so sometimes the hours do blur past, working hours, and that happens, and that's something I'm still kind of learning how to figure out. Like, when do I shut myself off? Like, it is 8 p.m. I should not be looking at my work phone. I need to put it down. I need to go do other things. It's time for me to decompress, play video games. So, especially with, the pandemic going on and us kind of adjusting from a hybrid life or a hybrid work lifestyle or a completely work from home lifestyle, we really just need to kind of set concrete barriers. Like, I will shut off my phone at 6 p.m. I'm closing my laptop. This is now me time. And I feel like
Yes.
that gives you a much better perspective because you're not always thinking about work. Like, when you're in the cycle of like it's only about work, you kind of get in this headspace where you can't think outside of the box. You can't like focus on different things, and you just kind of lose yourself. And you're working for a company, but you also got to remember, like, you're working for yourself so you can do the things you really like to do.
Yes. Yes. My gosh. Preach all of that. Amazing advice. And thank you so much for sharing your insights and perspective. It was so nice to chat with you, Kierstin. Is there anything else, any parting words of wisdom that you want to share with the audience?
Ooh. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Make those mistakes, stumble, but get yourself back up there and keep on learning. Don't be discouraged. You guys got this.
Yes. Woo. I'm like doing spirit fingers over here. Amazing. Well, Kierstin, thank you so much again for joining us. This has been so much fun. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for watching, and make sure that you all come back next week. There is another Q&A episode happening. So it's September 1st at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And the special guest is going to be Mimi Wormkrantz, aka A Evil Cat, also known as A Evil Cat. She is a Valorant caster and analyst. So make sure you're back here next Wednesday, September 1st, 5 p.m. Pacific, to catch the Q&A with an evil cat. So
Tune
be
in,
sure
you
to follow
guys.
them. Yes, yes. Allie says your check's coming in the mail, by the way, in the chat. I'm joking. That was a joke. But be sure to follow the channel so that you know when we are live. Make sure you join the Discord. It is discord.gg/TSMU. Kierstin, thanks again. It's been so much fun hanging out with you, and I appreciate the time that you spent with us this evening.
Thank you so much. This is a blast. This is so much fun, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to come on. So thank you, Emily. This is a super fun Q&A session.
Yeah, so it's so great to have you.